When you first play Genshin, play through the story and wish for characters, you might not realize how much lore there actually is behind every single character. Lots of small details, but also entire character arcs can be hidden inside item descriptions, and you might miss that. I've been making story videos about all sorts of anime, but since I've been playing a lot of Genshin, I figured I'd search up some things about Genshin characters. And boy did I discover so much interesting facts that I did not catch on my first playthrough. That said though, who better to start with than the very first featured character, the Anemo Archon, and also my personal very first character I wished for, Venti. I'm pretty sure most people will recognize him from that alone, but I wonder how many of you truly know his backstory, because I surely didn't until I started really looking into it. Before I get into his actual story though, I just want to mention something. Because see, Mondstadt is heavily based off of German culture, just like Liyue is on China and Inazuma on Japan. That's why so many things in this region use German terms. For example, the lyre that Venti uses is called der Frühling, which actually means spring in German. This isn't Venti's original lyre though, because his original lyre from the legend is kept by the church, since nobody actually knows that Venti is Barbatos. I'll explain this further later in the video, but people believe that Barbatos isn't around anymore, which is why they keep his lyre, called der Himmel, or German for heaven or the sky, safe in the church. Also, the Anemo vision that Venti's rocking, that's fake. He's an Archon, so he doesn't actually need his vision, he can just use his Anemo powers whenever he wants, but to hide who he truly is, he uses a vision so that people don't suspect him. And in actuality, he has a gnosis, which is something that I'll later go in depth about, but I'll also make a separate video on it, because it's quite complicated. Now that we've got all of that out of the way though, let's get into his actual backstory. So, to start off, Venti isn't a human being as how he appears to us. He's actually a wind spirit and known as the Archon Barbatos. Far before the game even starts, when he's still just a regular wind spirit, he befriended a boy in-game who goes by Nameless Bard. They were both playing a great part of a rebellion against Decarabian, the founder of Mondstadt, who reigned over Mondstadt as a tyrant. Decarabian had his reasons and didn't realize he was wrong, as he was only trying to protect his people from the dangers outside of the walls, and I'll go into detail telling that story in my History of Mondstadt video, but for the sake of Venti's story, all you need to know is that Decarabian was seen as a tyrant, and eventually Barbatos and the Nameless Bard alongside others succeeded in forming a rebellion and putting an end to Decarabian once and for all. Unfortunately though, shortly after the rebellion, the Nameless Bard died to a fatal wound, and so he never got to experience the freedom that they fought for. And so, after Decarabian was defeated, Barbatos became the Anemo Archon, and with his newfound powers, he created his vessel and made it in the image of his close friend to not only honor him, but also so that in a way, despite that he died, the Nameless Bard could still see the freedom that they fought for together blossom. This vessel, the way he's based off of the Nameless Bard, this is how we know Venti in-game. So every time you play as Venti, every time you see another statue in Mondstadt, that's what the Nameless Bard looked like. After Venti became the Anemo Archon, despite having the power to rule over Mondstadt, he refused to. After we got to know Venti so well through the games, it's hard to believe that he would turn into a tyrant as well, but that's exactly what Venti believed, and so that's why he turned it down. At the same time the rebellion against Decarabian was taking place, another war was currently being fought in Teyvat. This war was known as the Archon War. And after claiming victory over Decarabian, Venti was only one of the few remaining gods left. The Archon War was massive, and I go into detail about how the other characters became Archons and their perspective of the war in their own videos, like Zhongli with Liyue for example. After the war was done, 7 gods rose up. Venti was among them. This is what it means when Venti is referred to as one of the 7, as he represents the Anemo element as the Anemo Archon. The rest of the 7 were all Archons of their own respective element, and together they ruled a continent that we explore when we play the game called Teyvat. Unfortunately, nowadays, Venti alongside Zhongli are the last 2 original members of the 7, the other 5 all being replaced by someone new. For example, the Electro Archon A, who took over her sister Baal's place. Throughout the game, it's said that the original 7 were super close, which explains why Venti and Zhongli are such good friends. They share a tight bond that none of the replacements of the original 7 could really understand, since they weren't there from the beginning. Seeing how Venti refused to rule over Mondstadt, he liked to travel all throughout the country, only returning every now and then. For example, one time in history, a corrupt clan came to power and started oppressing the people of Mondstadt. This is when Venti returned to aid a girl called Vanessa in yet another rebellion. They won, and afterwards, Vanessa went and created the Knights of Favonius. This is the order protecting Mondstadt to this day, of which we see Jean being the leader in the game present day. After sticking around a little bit, to make sure everything went well, Venti left Mondstadt once again. Do we all remember Dvalin, the dragon that you fight at the beginning of the game? That is one of Venti's most trusted friends. Dvalin actually used to be feared by the people of Mondstadt, until one day he heard Venti play his lyre. He sat down beside him, and while he usually feared, Venti sang about his beauty, and so the two became best friends. Venti taught Dvalin all about humans. He taught him to speak the language and even taught him to sing. Then, about 500 years before the game starts, during an event which is known as the Cataclysm, an alchemist known as Rinadotter, also known as Gold, and who also happens to be Barbatos' creator, created a powerful shadow dragon known as Durin. Durin went out and spread chaos all across Mondstadt, destroying everything in his path. Nobody was able to stand up to him, not even the Knights of Favonius. Venti caught wind of this. And so, he came to lend his aid to Mondstadt once again. He called for Dvalin, and together they beat Durin, slaying him at the top of the mountain known as Dragonspine, which is a super beautiful but also super annoying chilly area in game. Also, not much is known about the relationship between Tsaritsa the Cryo Archon and Venti, other than that they were super close, and that something happened between them during the Cataclysm which caused Tsaritsa to become bitter towards Venti, and they just never talked again after that. Anyways, once Mondstadt was safe again, Venti seemingly disappeared into a deep sleep. Years went by, and it has been 500 years since anyone has heard anything of Venti. In fact, so much time passed that the people of Mondstadt started to forget what he looked like exactly, besides having some slight references to look at, like for example the statues that somewhat resemble him, which is exactly why no one seems to recognize him in-game. Then, just before the start of the game, Venti wakes up. He has a feeling that something is wrong with his old friend Dvalin. During his fight with the shadow dragon Durin, Dvalin accidentally ingested poison that originated from Durin. Over the centuries, as he was recovering from the battle with Durin, much like how Venti was in a deep sleep, the poison in his veins slowly started to corrupt him. That, alongside the people forgetting who he was, again much like Venti, and Venti's disappearance as well, made him feel betrayed, abandoned and forgotten. The sneaky Abyss Order took advantage of that, and they sent him to get revenge attacking Mondstadt. With help from Diluc, Jean, and us, aka the Traveler, Venti managed to finally defeat Dvalin and rid Dvalin of his corruption, healing him and turning him back to his former self and Venti's good friend. After a while, Venti gets ambushed by Signora, one of the Fatui Harbingers, which is an organization created by Tsaritsa. Remember her? The bitter Cryo Archon who has a bone to pick with Venti? Signora knocks Venti down and rips out his noses, then manages to flee with it and leaving Venti nosesless. Later, Venti tells the Traveler about the Geo Archon named Morax, who goes by the name, you guessed it, Zhongli. They will need to hurry though if they still want to catch him, seeing how he only appears during the Liyue's Rite of Descension, which only happens once a year. And so, the Traveler and Paimon are on their way to Liyue. And with that, Ventis' story is concluded. For now.
僕が相手だ。